There is a strange pain that nobody prepares you for. The moment you realize you no longer feel connected to the person you used to be. Not because you wanted to change, but because life kept forcing you to survive in ways that slowly erased parts of your soul. You laugh with people, you answer messages, you continue your routine. But deep inside you know something is wrong. The old version of you had fire in their eyes. But now it feels like you are emotionally walking through life completely numb. And the scariest part is not the pain itself. The scariest part is realizing you cannot remember the last time you truly felt like yourself anymore. Maybe this world made you colder after every betrayal, every disappointment, every silent battle you fought completely alone. Maybe you became so focused on surviving that you slowly stopped recognizing the human being staring back at you every night. But listen carefully, because this feeling is not appearing in your life by accident. Sometimes, the universe destroys the version of you that felt comfortable, because your soul was meant to evolve into someone far more powerful. Right now, you think you are losing yourself. But by the end of this video, you may realize you are actually meeting your real self for the very first time. There was a time when your heart felt lighter than this. You used to wake up with emotions that felt real, dreams that felt alive, and a version of yourself that still believed life would eventually make sense. But little by little, life started changing you in ways you did not even notice at first. Not through one single tragedy, but through hundreds of silent disappointments that slowly reshaped your entire soul. It happened every time you stayed quiet about something that broke you inside. Every moment you forced yourself to smile while secretly feeling emotionally exhausted pushed you further away from who you truly were. And eventually, survival became your personality. You stopped expressing your emotions fully because nobody seemed to understand the battles happening inside your mind. You became careful with your words, careful with your feelings, careful with your trust. Not because you wanted to become cold, but because life taught you that being emotionally open often came with pain attached to it. The truth is, people usually notice your attitude changing before they notice your pain. They call you distant, different, or emotionally unavailable without realizing how many silent wars you fought just to keep going. And somewhere during all those painful nights, you started missing a version of yourself that no longer exists. Not because that old version was weak, but because they had not yet been broken by reality. Now you sit alone sometimes and wonder what happened to your heart. You wonder why everything feels emotionally heavier, why your mind never rests, and why happiness feels temporary, no matter how hard you try to hold on to it. But what you still do not understand is this. The person you used to be was never meant to survive the life you are living now. The hardest part about changing is that nobody can actually see it happening to you. People only notice the final version of your silence, but they never witness the 1,000 moments that slowly created it. They do not see the nights where your thoughts kept attacking you long after the world went quiet. They do not hear the conversations you replay inside your mind, wondering if you were too much, not enough, or simply impossible to understand. And slowly, something dangerous begins happening inside a person who suffers in silence for too long. They stop expecting love to feel safe, and they start preparing themselves emotionally for disappointment before anything even begins. That is why you overthink simple situations now. That is why your mind keeps searching for hidden pain even during peaceful moments, because your soul became trained to survive emotional chaos. You tell yourself you are just tired, but deep inside you, know it feels bigger than exhaustion. It feels like you have been emotionally carrying the weight of becoming someone unrecognizable for a very long time. And maybe that is why certain memories suddenly hurt you again out of nowhere. Because your spirit is trying to show you the exact moments where pieces of your identity quietly disappeared. You became quieter because explaining your emotions started feeling pointless. Every time you tried opening your heart, it felt like people only understood the words and never the pain hidden behind them. So you adapted. You learned how to smile while emotionally collapsing, how to comfort others while secretly needing someone to save you too. But there is something you need to understand before this darkness consumes you completely. The fact that you no longer recognize yourself does not mean you are broken beyond repair. Sometimes, life destroys the false versions of you that were built only to survive pain. And in the middle of that destruction, your real soul begins fighting to finally be seen. At some point, you stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like a mask that never comes off. Every conversation became performance, every smile became survival, and every day felt like another attempt to hide how lost you truly were inside. You became emotionally exhausted from pretending you were okay all the time. Not because you wanted attention, but because carrying invisible pain for so long slowly began destroying your spirit from within. And the terrifying part is that eventually, pretending becomes automatic. You answer people with empty energy. You laugh without feeling joy. And you continue living, even when your soul feels disconnected from your own body. Sometimes you even miss the old pain, because at least it made you feel something real. Now everything feels emotionally muted, like your heart became tired of carrying emotions that nobody else could understand. You started questioning yourself in ways that quietly destroy a human being over time. You wondered if life changed you because you were weak, or if the world simply demanded too much from your heart. And maybe nobody knows how many times you almost gave up emotionally. Nobody knows how many nights you sat alone fighting thoughts that were slowly convincing you that the person you once were is gone forever. But listen carefully to this moment, because it might change the way you see your life forever. The reason you feel disconnected is not because your soul is dying, but because your soul is evolving faster than your old identity can survive. Pain has a strange way of introducing people to parts of themselves they never knew existed. Sometimes the darkest seasons of your life are secretly creating the strongest version of you beneath all the suffering. The person you were before could not handle the reality you face now. That old version needed comfort, but this new version is being shaped by pain into someone far deeper, wiser, and emotionally unstoppable. And maybe for the first time in your life, you are not becoming weaker from everything that hurt you. Maybe all this pain is finally turning you into the person you were always meant to become. There are moments now where you sit quietly and barely recognize the way you think anymore. The things that once mattered deeply to you suddenly feel empty, while the pain you ignored for years has started speaking louder than ever before. And that is because your soul can only stay silent for so long before it demands change. You were never designed to spend your entire life betraying your emotions just to make other people comfortable around you. For years, you carried expectations that slowly crushed the real version of yourself underneath them. You became who people needed instead of who your heart was desperately begging you to become. That is why you feel emotionally disconnected from your own life sometimes. Your body continues the routine, but your spirit keeps whispering that you were meant for something far more real than this existence. And the terrifying truth is that awakening often feels exactly like destruction in the beginning. Because before your soul can rebuild itself, it must first tear apart every false identity you created just to survive pain. That is why your emotions feel heavier lately. You are not only grieving people, memories, or lost time. You are grieving the death of the person you spent your whole life pretending to be. And maybe nobody around you understands how exhausting this transformation truly feels. They see your distance, but they do not see the war happening between your old self and the person your soul is trying to become. Some nights you probably wonder if you are becoming emotionally cold forever. But the truth is, your heart is not becoming colder. It is becoming more selective about what deserves access to your energy. And maybe this version of you feels unfamiliar because it is the first version built from truth instead of fear. Maybe the person you're becoming now is the real you that pain was trying to uncover all along. One day, you're going to look back at this painful chapter of your life and finally understand why everything had to fall apart. You will realize that losing the old version of yourself was never a punishment, because that version was slowly dying inside long before the world noticed it. The truth is, your soul outgrew the life that once felt familiar to you. What used to comfort you started suffocating you, and what once felt safe slowly became the very thing destroying your inner peace. That is why you could no longer pretend the pain was not affecting you anymore. Your spirit became tired of surviving a life that no longer matched the person you were becoming deep inside. And maybe that is the real reason everything feels unfamiliar now. Not because you are lost, but because your soul has finally stopped accepting relationships, environments, and identities that were never truly meant for you. You spent so much time trying to become who others expected that you forgot what your own heart sounded like. But pain has a brutal way of removing every fake layer until only truth remains standing in the end. And yes, transformation like this feels terrifying, because becoming your real self often requires destroying every version of you that was built from fear, people-pleasing, emotional trauma, and survival. But look at yourself carefully now. Despite everything that tried to break your spirit, you are still here fighting battles nobody else can even see. That strength did not appear by accident. Every heartbreak, every lonely night, every silent breakdown was slowly building a person far stronger than the one who first entered the storm. So if you feel unfamiliar to yourself right now, do not fear it anymore. The old you is fading because your soul is finally becoming powerful enough to live as the person you were always destined to become. And maybe one day you will thank this painful season for changing you completely. Because the person rising from this darkness will no longer beg the world for love, validation, or permission to exist as their true self.